Hi everyone, welcome back. Welcome to the next video of the Svelte Kit. So in the last video, we talked about one demo application. Now in the future videos, we are going to write some applications and we'll group all these features together and understand. So till now we talked about the routings, right? And we talked about how the page-based routing works, how we are creating, how we are doing a data fetching at the client side and at the server side. We also talked about the store, how we can use a store with the Svelte kit. And we talked about, I guess, how we are passing the data, how we are fetching the data from the server side, client side. We talked about the routing, and we talked about the important aspect layouts, right? So there are a couple of more important aspects. We'll talk about the hydration. We'll talk about how to manage the session once user is logged in, right? We'll talk about session. Here we can just do a simple login, or we can use Firebase for that, for providing authentication. We'll talk about forms. Let's say you are writing a form, how you can do the validations. So if you talk about any framework, what all things come to your mind? Let's say if you talk about the client side framework, React, what all things we discuss. Okay, so we talk about how to create a single page application with the help of routing, because routing is making that possible. Single page application. Then you talk about the component creation, data passing, how to fetch the data, life cycle, data fetching, and state management. These are different topics which come to your mind whenever you talk about any framework. How it is rendering, the process of rendering the component, and then deployment. When you talk about simple CSR application, client-side rendered application like React, Angular, the deployment is easy. You just create a build using npm run build, and you just put that in the S3 bucket, and then expose that through the CloudFront and your DNS domain, like Route 53, or you have your own GoDaddy domain, which you can configure. When it comes to the server side SSR, server side rendering, these are all the topics: routing, data fetching, stores, which is also part of a state management, and the layouts, how we define the layouts, session, because now it's not a client side login. Everything is being managed by server, the managing the session of the user once user logs in, how to deal with the forms, how to do the forms validations. All these things are common concept. Like forms, you do it in the CSR, SSR. So these are some of the topics, and then when we write the whole application, we combine all those things together. We will build the layouts, we will write a store, we will do the routing using page-based routing, we will write a page.server.ts or page.ts, export the load function for the Svelte components, and then management. Session management is just a simple, okay, how you will know that user is logged in, right? And how later, how you can protect the routes. Like here I have written the routes, but how I can protect them, because I need to track the user session and you need to publish the user session everywhere. Once you know that user has logged in, either a cookie based authentication you are using, or a Firebase auth0, or whatever the authentication mechanism you are using, and a simple login service you are using, you have to somehow tell the server side components or server side routes that user has logged in. You have to manage the user data across the sessions. So we will see how we can manage that in the server side Svelte.js, and how we can protect the routes so that only logged in user can only access them. Form validations and the form submissions, like these are called forms actions, because you are submitting the HTML form to the server side, to directly to the server side page components. And then we will talk about hooks. Like there are a couple of things you can plug in with each and every component. Let's say I wanted to check the user session before you even publish the route. If user not logged in, I will redirect him to the login page. Or if user is already logged in, I should not allow him to go to login page again. Let's take him to the dashboard page. So these we can configure in the hooks. So these are actually the core concepts. Then we can talk about the advanced routing, dynamic routing, where you are passing a lot of parameters in the URL. And we can also talk about the error pages, how you can define the error pages if something goes wrong, how you can let the user know that okay, something is wrong. Okay, so these are the topics I think which we will more focus, but we are also going to use these topics of routing, data fetching, client side fetching, server side, how we can manage the store using writable, readable stores, how we can define the nested layouts, how we can just submit the form and do the validation using Jod library or Joy or any validation library, or Yup. Yup is also popular validation library, either a client side or a server side. How we can manage the session where user is getting logged in either using auth0 or just by submitting the username and password through a simple form. Okay, and the hooks, the important aspect. So let's talk about these things that we are going to cover in the next video. But if you talk about the features, here also you actually protect the routes. You actually create a custom private and public and private routes where you check the user session. The only thing is here you maintain the user session at the client side, the JWT token or the cookies are server side, but you read the cookies and you check the expiry. If the cookies is still valid and not expired, then you allow user to access the protected routes. So somehow you are checking the user is logs in, either checking the JWT token or either making an API call checking if this token is still valid, or just sending a token to the backend. The APIs will decide okay, this token is valid or not. And we have a lifecycle methods, data fetchings, data management using stores. I mean, state management libraries are there like Redux and all, but in the Svelte.js we have these stores, readable, writable stores, which can store your data. Like it's doing a state management for your application. And the lifecycle hook, lifecycle, typically there is no lifecycle in the server side, but we are writing a Svelte component in the Svelte kit, so we can use the lifecycle hooks provided by Svelte.js in Svelte kit. Okay, so let's start on this. We will do a simple authentication. In the authentication, it's all about attaching some session to the keys, so that when the request comes again from the client side again, we can check the cookies are valid. Okay, user logs in, allow him to access the protected routes. The form submission is a little different in the Svelte kit than any other framework like Next.js, React.js. Here you submit the action to the server, and then server validates and do the lot of things. Okay, so without delay, let's tune in the next video, and we will talk about all these concepts together in one single application.